Thanks. Yeah, I want to share my screen. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to see you here. And just like before, this is going to be a hands-on workshop, not just me talking. I'm going to ask questions, hoping you guys will share, even hoping that you will share your screen. So I just have an opening question before we get started. Last time we talked about really the importance of interviewing your potential customers. And I provided Tracy with not only my slides, but a sheet where you could record any interviews that you may have done. And I'm just wondering, by a show of hands, if anybody was encouraged to do interviews. Anyone? Quang and Ann and Kristen, that's great. So later during our session, I'm going to ask if you were able to fill out that chart, maybe you can share with us some of your insights. So I'm going to share my screen. And can you guys see it?
Yes.
So I'm going to do just a little bit of review for people that missed our last session. But what we were focused on is something called problem solution fit, meaning that you guys, you have your companies, you have your solutions, and you were able to identify a customer segment and identify that customer's problem and try to get an understanding if they have a problem that your solution addresses. So, we're identifying that customer segment, and I talked about really coming up with a customer archetype. The example I gave is, for example, if you say your customer is a hospital, I'm going to say to you, what does that mean? Are you talking about a research hospital? Are you talking about a rural hospital? Is it public? Is it private? Does it matter? To that detail, I wanted you to get an understanding of your customer. And then we talked about, okay, you've identified the customer. Do they have a problem or do they have a pain that your solution can address? I talked about that when you're starting out, you may not even know who your customer is. You may not really have an understanding of your customer's problem. And so what you have to do is you have to guess, and you have to do experiments to validate your guesses. So we look at this kind of like, so I'm an engineer. I think Sandra said that, like the scientific method, right? So the first thing that you do is you come up with a hypothesis. And there's really like two initial guesses. Who's my customer? That's a guess, because again, you're going to have to validate that. What's my customer's problem? And do I have a solution that can address that problem? And so once you come up with your hypotheses, you're going to do an experiment, do a test to try to figure out who's my customer, what's the value proposition. And the purpose of these interviews, the purpose is to validate or invalidate your guesses. You want to get an understanding, I keep talking about this, of the customer's pain, of what they're trying to do, what they want to gain, and also how important is that problem to them? Because even if they have the problem, what happens if it's not solved? How often does that problem occur? And you want to think about it. I mean, is solving that problem, is the solution a must-have? And in order to know if it's a must-have, think about a guy in the desert needing a water bottle. For him, that water bottle is a must-have. So you do the interviews, you gather all the information, you get together with your team, and you try to analyze, okay, do I have the right customer? Do I have the right solution? Do I need to pivot? And if you need to pivot, then you've got to guess again. You've got to guess again about your customer, about your value proposition. And this is an iterative process. And you just keep going through this process. You keep interviewing people. You keep asking why, because you're trying to make sure you really understand the customer's problem. And then even if you do, we talked a little bit about market size. Do enough people really care enough about the problem that this can be a huge business? And will they care enough to tell their friends? When you have problem and solution, and that meets, you have problem solution fit. And that's what we're looking for. And so we talked about the business model canvas. But what we're really focused on the last session and a large part of this session is desire. Is there a customer segment that has a problem that your solution addresses? And before we look at any other region of this business model canvas, you have to have desire. You don't want to start talking about cost and revenue until you validate that there's actually a customer that wants, that has a problem that your solution addresses. So this is one thing I want to try. I want you guys to think about your product, your customer segment, and then how it reduces your customer's pain or increases their gain. So I'm going to give you like 2 minutes, and I want you to think about that. And then I'm going to ask for volunteers, and I want you to use this format. Don't stray from the format. Use this format to talk about your product, your customer, and how it reduces pains or increases gain. So this is our first exercise, and I'm going to give you, okay, so I see you, Quang. I know you can't wait. Can't wait to share. What I want to do, I want to have someone who actually did an interview. You actually talked to a customer. And I'm going to have Quang, and then I want someone else. So Quang, you go first.
Thank you, Denise.
Hey.
After the boot camp, several weeks ago, I already interviewed some students in my school and asked them about their opinion about the fast food and what they are worried about, what prevents them from buying the fast food more frequently, and what reason that can make them to buy fast food more frequently. And I think that the pain that they get fits the idea of my business. So my business thesis is a healthy fast food chain that serves college students who are worried about the healthiness of fast food.
Okay, so how do you, so you see where I had reduces pains or increases gains? You just said what your product was and who your customer is. How do you reduce their pain or increase their gain?
Yes, my fast food chain will sell the healthy fast food, so it will.
I'm gonna share my screen. Hold on. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so do it like this. Your fast food and your customer was college students that want healthy food, right? And then how do you reduce their pain or increase their gain?
I will make them healthier and help them improve their health.
Okay. Okay, so that was a good try. Thank you, Quang. Does anyone else who did an interview, can you want to volunteer to do your business thesis? So Anne, I know you did an interview because I saw your hand. I know I'm calling you out.
Yes, I'll be happy to. And Kristen is actually on my team, so you can, okay. Kristen can help me out as well.
Okay, do you want me to share my screen again or you have it?
Oh, I have the format, thank you.
Okay.
So my sentence would be a language learning app for financially independent adults that uses interactive activities to increase productivity and motivation for learning foreign languages. Because based on our interviews, we conducted customer discovery interviews with 20 individuals. They're all college, they all have experience previously or currently taking college level language courses, and based on the results, we identify some of their gains and pains. The pains including feeling stuck, like not being able to move up to at the next level or do something beyond simple tasks. So that way, that's why I added to increase productivity and motivation. And the pain would be that they want to have a more immersive experience, and when they like competition because it gives them kind of internal rewards when they kind of compete against each other. So we added interactive activities in the sentence. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Thanks. It's really good. Does anyone else want to take a stab at the business thesis? Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. So you guys keep those business theses because we're going to use those for another exercise later. So make sure you have it and keep it with you. So we are in that desire region of the business model canvas. And I've talked about incessantly customer segment and value proposition, because that's so important. But what's also important is customer relations. And with customer relationships, we talk about how to get, keep, and grow. And for a startup, this is really one of the most important things that you have to focus on, because a startup will die without customers. And the cost of acquiring customers is one of the most expensive parts of any company. So Steve Blank, the guy who popularized the business model canvas, he describes customer relations as get, keep, and grow. And he created a visual representation of the process. And it kind of looks like a funnel laying on its side. These things on the left, the arrows going into the funnel, represent all the demand creation for your product or services. Of course, this is just a visual representation of a process. The world doesn't actually look like this. But when you get good enough at this, you tend to look at your process literally as a funnel laying on its side. And you tend to think about, how can I efficiently get my customers into the funnel and all the way through to the other end? So if we start, when you're thinking about customer acquisition, the first thing we talk about is awareness. How do you get people to know that you even exist? How do you create demand for your product or service? Well, there's free demand creation and there's paid demand creation. Free demand could involve speaking at a conference, blogging, posting stuff on social media. All that's free, costs no money. The only cost is time. But then there's also paid demand creation activities, and those may include spending money on advertising, attending, maybe having a booth at a trade show, doing some kind of email marketing, and those things cost money. And so for the activities that have a cost, you want to track your activities. And this is important so that you know how much you're spending and what's working, what's not working. We haven't talked a lot about costs, but I want to stop here and talk a little bit about cost, because as I said, it costs money to get a customer. And you want to think about, hey, if I go to a conference, I spend $50 on flyers. What happens as a result of that? Do I get a sell? Does that work? Is that helpful? And so you want to track your customer acquisition costs, and you want to optimize them by keeping a record and looking at the result of a particular activity. And the big question you want to ask is, my customer acquisition cost, my cost of getting a customer, is that less than my lifetime value? So when you think about customer acquisition costs, the way you determine that cost And it's sort of an estimate, but you add up all your costs to get a customer and you divide that by the number of customers that you have. For the lifetime value, you have to know the lifetime of the product. So for example, I worked with a team, they had software for mobile robots, and they found out through interviews that their potential customers updated that software every 3 years. So in that case, the lifetime value of the software was 3 years. So we talked about hypothesis development. And so you have to think about in terms of how customers find out about your products, how do they find out? What are some of the questions that you can ask? For a specific industry, does your industry have trade shows? Do you look at magazines or other media sources? How do you find out about similar types of solutions? Will your product or service, what is the process the customer goes through for adopting a new solution? And then how easy will it be for them to change to your solutions? How much support and maintenance is required? So I just want to stop right here. For you guys, for your industries, for your customers, how do your customers now, how do they find out about solutions? Do you guys know? And this is important because what people do, they just start like advertising or doing all this different marketing. And the customers still don't know that they exist because that's not how the customers find the products. So do you guys have any idea about, yes, Quayne?
Yes, I see that in the business to business stuff, usually people who would like to use a new product for their own problem, they ask the experienced businessman in their field. For example, they know that, okay, this company is bigger than my company, and they may try the products that can solve the problem. So they come there to ask, so which company do you try to contract with, and which product
So you're
do
saying
you
by
use?
referral?
Yes,
based on
that's
referral.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yes.
Word of mouth.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else know how their customers find solutions? Kristen, how does your potential customer, how would they find a solution? Yours is the language, right? How do they find that solution? Where do they look?
Well, one potential avenue for our customers to look for us would be through conferences. So I know, depending on whether it's a national or a local conference, some companies may choose to go that route for teachers or language learners to go there.
So let me ask you this. Is that a hypothesis? Is that a guess? Or do you know?
Oh.
It's okay if it's a hypothesis because that's what, we're starting out with that. I'm just wondering, do you know?
I think, can I start? I think I would like to stay with the hypothesis.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because so when you do more interviews like after tonight, that's one of the questions you're going to be wanting to understand. How do they find out about solutions? And you want to get that from them because that's where you're focused on trying to advertise to them. Guys, I want you to know it's okay to guess because that's how we are starting out here. We're coming up with our hypotheses, and then you go through the interview process to validate or invalidate your hypothesis. So as I said, the first thing is awareness, but then you may create awareness by showing an MVP. And an MVP is really, it's like called a minimal viable product. And it's prior to doing a prototype. It just has fewest features as possible. And you only show this, you only show your MVP, or you only demonstrate your MVP after you found problem and solution fit. And so you might show that to create interest. And then once you show that MVP, are people following up and asking you questions? And if so, well, then you might spend the resources, the money, the time to develop a prototype. And if you develop a prototype and you're showing people that, they like it, they may say, hey, I have a requirements document. And then they may actually start considering adopting new technology. And then what you're hoping is that they'll, if it's a company, they'll approve a purchase. And this is kind of the process. You're starting out with awareness, interest, consideration, and purchase. So, and there's this little magic accelerator on the bottom, and this is called a viral loop. A viral loop could be something as simple as a customer who adopted your solution and couldn't wait to tell their friends in another company or another agency or in another dorm, wow, this was the greatest thing ever. And boom, before you know it, it's like a magnifying effect. It's a viral effect about your product, about your service, based on people loving it. And this can happen. So Steve Blank, he calls this funnel, he uses these labels like awareness, interest, consideration, and purchase. You don't have to stick to these labels. You may use different labels and you only learn about those as you're gathering information. You'll find out what's important with respect to your industry and your customers. So my point is, this is just a template. You don't have to use it, but it's a way of thinking about the process of getting customers. And so we've been focusing on getting customers, but what's really interesting is how do we make sure we don't lose our existing customers? Many startups, many new companies forget this. It's much more expensive to get a new customer. Remember, we talked about those customer acquisition costs than to keep a customer. So you should keep regular check-ins with your customer. Yeah, you may send out updates, newsletters throughout the lifetime of your product. You may even want to set up a schedule or calendar for yourself about when and how you should contact the customer. So we talked about getting customers. We talked about keeping customers. And now we want to talk about how we grow customers. And when we think about growing customers, there's really nothing magic about it. One thing that a lot of founders and a lot of startups do is they try to put all the different features in their products at once. But you could think about maybe putting some features in now of your product or service and updating later. And this is called unbundling. It requires you to think about, can I decompose the product and charge for additional features? There also may be some features that you offer for free as a way of creating loyalty. You also want to think about upselling. Do you have products that are like good, better, and best? So a perfect example of this is like a car dealer, right? They have like a budget car and a luxury car. So the customer may start out with the budget car, but upsell to the luxury car, which has a much higher price. And there's also cross-selling. If you're buying one product, are there any companion products? For example, if you're selling cell phones, you might also sell a protective cover to protect it from being cracked if it's dropped, something like that. And as Quang talked about, the referrals. These referrals where you have people that love your product or service and they tell their friends or they tell other businesses or they refer for you. And that's another way to grow your customer base. So that's what we call get, keep, and grow. And you also, with respect to this, you need to do customer discovery. You'll start out with your hypothesis, but you don't want to spend any money on advertising, on marketing, anything until you find out how your customer, what do they do? Where do they go? Where do they look for a solution? And your advertising, your marketing is going to be based on customer feedback, not on a guess. Another thing to think about is something called channels. Channels have to do with sales and distribution support. How do your customers, how do they want to be reached? You need to get information about, so we talked about what do they look, and then how do they purchase the products or services? Do they purchase it online? Do they, is it like a brick and mortar situation where they're physical buildings and there's salespeople and trucks and all of that? So you might have, again, a hypothesis, but you need to think about, as I said, where do my customers buy similar products or services today? If the product is sold via salespeople, you'll need to get information about how salespeople are compensated. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to ask, with particular your industries, your customers, how do they get their products or services today? Similar products or services. Do you guys know? Aprilina, I see you shaking your head. Do you know?
I think for my my service, which is coaching, people tend to ask their friends and family, or if it's a real serious issue, they'll get a therapist or counselor.
Okay, so if they ask their friends or family,
Or
how do their friends and family find out? I mean, so my question is, how would anybody even know you exist?
Oh yeah, I would have to market.
How do you know where they look?
How do I know where they look?
Yeah, like if you say I want to market, you want to market somewhere where they look, right? So how would you find that out?
I could go to do some online searching of places like, for example, on Facebook, and see where they're talking about those issues, or even on Google.
That's good, but see what I was wanting is you to say, because we're all talking about interviewing the potential customers.
Oh, that's good.
So if you had like your customer archetype, like who that is, you would, without selling, and if coaching is really something they're looking for, ask them, you know, how is it that you would go about finding this?
Yeah.
And then how, you know, you talk to several people so that you find a pattern. And then that's where you focus your advertising based on what the customer is already doing to find the solution. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Sometimes I don't know what to ask them though, but thanks for the suggestions.
Yeah. All of this, you guys, around, you know, identifying who your customer is, coming up with the value proposition, trying to figure out how to market to them. It's all based on how they're currently operating in their world. What are they currently doing? You don't want to set up something where they don't even do, they don't look at I don't know, a blog, you know, maybe they don't do that.
Right.
Okay. So Laura, I see you have your hand up. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. What
That's
I would do
okay.
is I would ask the individual that contact me. Most of the time they Google, and I ask them how they found me. Or when I cold call, I ask how do they reach out to their individuals and how can I reach them? And it seems to be business to business, seems to be LinkedIn, but a lot use search words. And I ask them when they reach out to me, what did they search? How did they find me?
That's really good. And especially if you said they usually use LinkedIn, then you know that's where they're going. So if there's a way that you can reach them on LinkedIn, because that's where they're already going. You don't want to try to reach them somewhere that's outside of their normal businesses, their normal behavior. So this is all really about knowing your customer. And that's why, you know, we're doing these interviews and trying to get to understand what's their workflow like, what's their job like, what's their day like, and how do you fit into that? Remember, I was asking it last week, I kept saying, where do you fit? How do you fit? So that's what you want to think about. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. So I've been focused like a laser, you guys, on desire, because that's it, man. If you don't have your customer and you don't have the solution that solves their problem, you don't have a business. And I also talked about, you guys, bias. You thinking your product, your service is the best thing since sliced bread. Well, it's not the best thing since sliced bread if there aren't customers who have a problem that your solution can solve. So let's just assume that you found problem solution fit, that you've done a bunch of interviews, you've been able to validate your guesses, validate your hypotheses, and that's not enough though. Even though that's like the most important thing, that's not enough. You have to have desire. And then the next thing is your business feasible? And what I mean by feasible, I mean, are you going to be able to make money? Are you going to be able to make profit? Are you going to be able to do it? And let me just break down feasibility. So when I talk about feasibility, I'm thinking about what are the key activities that you have to do to have a business? Like if you don't do these key activities, you can't have a business. What are the resources you need? If you don't have these resources, you don't have a business. Who might you partner with? So I'm going to break this down for you, and then we're going to do an exercise. So when I'm thinking about key activities that are important to your business, meaning, as I said, that you can't have a business if you don't have these, they can include things like getting certifications, doing software development, getting government permits, storing and shipping goods. Like if you can't do these activities, no business, right? Physical resources. They can include office space, storage location, equipment, human resources. So when I say human resources, most people automatically think, okay, employees. Okay, I might need coders for a software program. I might need someone to develop my website. So you do need all these employees. But another thing that you may need that people, especially startup founders, they forget about is you need mentors and advisors in the form of industry experts. Entrepreneurs often fail because they think their vision, the vision of their business, they think those are facts, but you need experts and mentors to help you sort through whether your vision is actually a fact or it's a hallucination. So when you think about people, when you think about your business, think about as well experts, mentors, advisors that you can get to work along beside you. Another resource is intellectual property. And I'm just going to run through this quickly, but like a patent protects inventions, new technology. Trademark is for branding, branding that's protectable, like the Nike swoosh. It could be a mark, a logo, a slogan. A copyright is for created authored works. It could be songs, even website content can be a copyright. And when you think about a trade secret, this is something that a commercial secret or trade secret, people don't really even think about. But what it really is something that about your business that you keep it confidential. You make people sign a confidentiality agreement. And just so you know, like the Coke recipe, the recipe for Coke, that's a trade secret. So it's just non-public information or technology that you're making an effort to keep secret. You're also going to need financial resources, and they can be things like your personal savings. You could ask friends or family to invest. You can get an SBIR grant. That's a government grant. Angel investors, venture capital, something that's really hard to get, bank loans, but these are the financial resources. And so what I want you to also think about, so we talked about key activities, key resources. What about strategic alliances? Why have partners? Well, there may be something that you need that you would not normally, you don't have the capability to develop. And it would be easier if you partnered with someone that could help you. A partner may have unique knowledge or expertise that would help you. And partnering with someone may make your business just more efficient. But when you think about a partnership for your business, it has to be a two-way street. Not only do you get something out of the partnership, they get something too. So a classic mistake is understanding why you need them, right? Like why you need them as a partner, but not being able to understand why they need you. They should need you not only for success, but if they don't have you, their business might fail. So finding a partner is similar to customer discovery. You have to understand their pain points, and you have to ask questions like, does partnering with them, do you solve their problem or relieve their pain? So let me give you an example. So Starbucks Coffee and Pepsi, they partnered because Starbucks wanted to get their drinks into grocery stores, but they didn't have experience bottling. They didn't have relationships with the grocery stores. But Pepsi had experience bottling. They had the relationships with the grocery stores, and Pepsi wanted to expand the beverages that they were offering. So this was a win-win. This was a great partnership. So that's just an example of something to think about when you're thinking about partnerships. So I want to go through a little example here, and I'm going to have you guys do an exercise. So I want to give you just something that we could all relate to. So assume Quang's going to think I'm talking about him, but I'm not talking about you, Quang. Assume you have a founder that has a healthy meal delivery service, and it's called, this service was called Sustainable Ventures. And this founder, her customers happen to be experienced bikers, and she supplied them with healthy meals. So when I was talking to her, and we tried to figure out, okay, what is your value proposition? And I was asking, okay, what happens if they don't get these healthy meals when they're biking? And they would get tired because they needed more energy for the longer ride. So her value proposition was increased energy for the long rides. So what I want to do, what I wanted us to do together is try to fill out the feasibility side of the business model canvas. So let me see, let me go here. I'm going to stop. Can you guys see that? So if you think about the healthy food delivery options, and you can just yell out, what are some key activities that she needs to do to have a business? What do you guys think? I want us to do this together because you're gonna have to do this for your business. So what does she need? Key activities, what she need to do?
Yes, certifications to sell food.
What else?
A business structure,
A business what?
structure, a LLC or a DBA.
Okay. What else? She has a food delivery service. What does she need? What activities does she need to do to have this business?
She need to cook the food. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's, yeah.
Cook the food.
Yeah, she need the expertise that can optimize the quality of the food.
Advertise. What else?
Does she need to get,
Sorry. Kristen, go ahead.
does she need to get the licenses for the different vehicles she's going to use to deliver the food?
Okay. What else?
The packaging of the food, she has to figure out whether it's going to be bagged or if she's going to have containers.
Okay. So those are some of the key activities that she has to do to have a business. What are the resources that she needs?
Delivery vehicles.
Okay.
The method to exchange payment or get the payments.
Okay, like a point of sale system.
A bank
Okay.
account to receive the funds into.
Okay.
And drivers.
Who could be possible partners? So we listed all these things, right? And remember I said a partner would be maybe something that you're not good at or something that would make you more efficient. So who could she partner with?
Delivery services.
Yes. Anyone else?
YouTuber,
Well, I can hear.
the YouTuber, the YouTube channel that
Okay,
review the food.
YouTube. Okay. Okay. So does someone else want to say something?
I was just gonna say people to help her package,
Okay. So maybe a packaging service, huh?
packaging service.
Brent has his hand up.
I want to go through this because I'm going to have you. Okay, Brent, Brent. What are you going to say? I see your hand up.
Hey there. So when you're talking about partnerships, are you talking like people that will help you to become, like help you to, I guess, get your business off the ground? Or are you talking and in service, like employees or something like that? Or are you talking about like partners in that you and I are going to do this together? You know, because for mine, I know I need engineers and, you know, electrical engineers as well as software engineers, but I wouldn't consider them to be partners. I would more hire them to be part of my organization. So are you, when you're talking about the feasibility part and the partnerships specifically, are you talking like anybody that could help you that you would need to get the idea into a reality?
Okay, so remember, I was talking about what you need to have a business, right? And I talked about physical resources and other resources. So the other resources, remember I talked about employees. So like what you talked about, like the engineers and whoever you need to employ, those are part of your resources. So the key resources, they're not your partners, they're your key resources. Partners are like, they may be another company, another entity, and you guys are going to work together to deliver a solution. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, and that's why I was giving the example of like Pepsi and Starbucks. Like they work together to put Frappuccinos in the grocery store. So what I want you guys to do now is I'm gonna put a worksheet in the chat. Let me see if I can, I gotta get it, give me a minute. Just a minute, let's see here. Can you guys see that? It says feasibility worksheet. I want you to click on that. And I'm gonna give you a couple of, maybe like 5 minutes. I'm gonna put my timer on. I want you to think about your business. So we just did this example and I said, okay, what are the key activities that this woman that delivered healthy food meals, what key activities did she need to have a business? What were the key resources and what partners could she have? I want you to think like that about your business, the key activities, the key partners, and the key resources. So I'm setting my time. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you learned a lot from that exercise, really about your ability to explain what your business is, you know, so that people get it. And then thinking about, okay, if I have desire, because just because you have desire doesn't mean you can have a business. Can I do all the activities? Can I get all the resources? And what about partnerships? So I just want to take some time to share if there's a couple of people that want to share about that experience and actually what you learned from it. Quang, I know you were talking earlier. Do you want to share a little bit?
Yes, yes. In the breakout room, each of us presented our idea, and we get the discussion as well as advice from other people. Yeah, and it helped a lot. Yeah, it helped improve our idea. And
okay, all right. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share an example of actually what you learned, like what you thought about your activities and resources, and did people help you kind of brainstorm and think about that? Laura, yeah.
I was coming in at the end. I wasn't part of the competition that was going on, so I was trying to catch up real quick. So I had a lot of, and I have a small business. I provide this behavioral assessment, effective communication skills, and some follow-on coaching when it's needed. So it was really beneficial for me that everyone was giving me a lot of great tips. And I really like the idea of one of the individuals in our group was speaking about being able to provide presentation skill support with us having to do so much online training, and not all of us is as comfortable with the online presentation. So I thought that was a great idea. And it threw out a lot of other valuable ideas that I felt beneficial to me. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. So thank you.
Okay. McKenzie, I see you shaking your head. Do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, not necessarily, but I kind of understand like the like help from everybody else. It's different when you have it in your head and you kind of like speak with everybody else, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, it opens your eyes to more of the things that you might need or the things that you didn't think of before. Like I'm in this just so I can like get a better perspective. I've wanted to do some of the PACE competitions and everything, but I have too many thoughts in my head. So we're just discussing and I was helping other people, and it was kind of interesting to see their brain, the way their brains work, and then the way mine kind of connect with it. So it's a good opportunity.
So let me tell you something about this. So let me kind of I'm going to share my screen with you guys again. So we spent last week and the beginning of this week really focused on desire, because as I said, that is the key. If without desire, we're not talking about feasibility, we're not talking about money, we're not talking about anything. We got to get that desire down. And the way we do that is through the customer interviews. But as I said, that's not enough. Because even if you have desire, is it feasible? And this whole feasibility thing, remember I talked about you need to have like an expert or an advisor or a consultant. So now you guys have brainstormed about what you think, your hypothesis about what you think are the key activities, key resources, and key partners. But not only did you think about it, we put you into rooms to help you kind of brainstorm and just think about it in a more broad perspective. What is it that you need? Now, your next task that you need to do is you need to contact, if you have or you need to find a mentor, an expert in your industry, someone that you can go to and say, I have this business idea, or I'm a small business. These are the things that I think I need to do. I think I need to do these key activities, key resources. These are possible partners. For someone who's an expert in the industry, then you want to say, is there anything else that you can think of? Because that person will know. And there, even though we spent this time here in the class, there still may be some things, like sometimes you may have to license technology, there may be some certification, there may be something about the stakeholders and the ecosystem that you don't know, that you know, some activity that you may have to do. So this is not a case where you start a company in a vacuum. So that's the reason we went through this. And finding experts is tough. So you really want to work on trying to get like a warm introduction. Maybe you can go through PACE. Maybe they can help you kind of figure out, guide you as to how you can meet mentors, advisors, experts, and you show them this feasibility part. But only, don't just go straight to like meeting an expert. You need to do your interviews first. And I you know, I am probably on your nerves about these interviews, but you guys really need to do this customer discovery. You really need to understand who your customer is, come up with an archetype, what's their problem, how often do they have that problem, what's my solution that addresses it. And only when you have that, do you go to the expert and say, hey, I have desire, I have problem solution fit. Now I'm trying to figure out, is this feasible? Can I do it? And that's when you want to talk to the expert. If you find the expert, they, I think, would be happy to talk to someone who's done this type of homework. So that's why we went through this exercise. So desire, desire, desire. That's it. Once you have desire, then you're asking, is it feasible? You know what? That's still not enough. The next thing is it viable? And what does that mean? Is it viable? That means, can you make money? Because just because you have problem solution fit, how many people have that problem? How urgent is the problem? You want to know, is there enough money in it? Is the view worth the climb? And you have to be about making money to have a business, because if you're not, it's just a passion project. It's just a hobby. It's just a project. So you really want to get an understanding about the cost, and understanding the cost, because we talked about the key activities and the key resources, that will help you come up with estimate, a realistic estimate of your costs, because you'll have an understanding of the activities that you have to perform and the resources that you need. So when I'm talking about revenue and cost, today we're going to talk about cost, and tomorrow we'll spend time talking about more about revenue. But what I find is that many founders, many entrepreneurs, they don't like focusing on the financials. And I get that. They would much rather focus on their product, or their service, and they don't want to talk about cost and revenue, because sometimes that seems like a chore. But if you don't focus on financials, you'll be out of money, and you'll be out of money before you even get started. You won't even get to the next level. You won't even grow. So the takeaway from this session is you need to think about cost. So right now, you're in the phase, you shouldn't be spending any money. Hopefully, if you're in the startup phase, what you should be doing is searching. Remember, we talked about the difference between a startup and a big company is a startup searches, and a big company, large companies, they execute, they implement. Right now, where you are, you're doing customer discovery, you're doing these interviews. Doesn't cost a lot of money. And you're doing these interviews to see if there's desire, so you can decide if you should spend money, okay? So if you assume that you've done this, you have desire, and you're getting ready, you're ready to go. Hey, I'm ready to start this company. Well, you need to really think about record keeping. And that's what people, they just really, they don't want to do. They don't want to look at the cash flow. The money, and the cash flow has to do with keeping track of the money coming in and the money coming out. And when you're first starting, you have to do that, because people say, I don't have to do that. I can just get an accountant. Well, when you first start, you don't have any money for an accountant. You have to do that. You have to understand what's called like your burn rate. And that just means how much money you're spending over a certain period of time. So when you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about this in terms of finances, and you're thinking, does your revenue cover your costs? How many products do I have to sell to cover my cost and make a profit? How much will I charge? The whole point of working on your business model canvas is getting an understanding about whether you can solve your customer's problem. But solving the problem is not worth it if you're losing money. If no one is paying you to solve their problem, how long is your business going to last? You have to think about, remember last week I talked about market sizing. What is your target market? It's not going to be, remember I said someone that has an app for a phone. The market is not going to be everybody that has a phone. You really have to think about your customer archetype, and that will help you come up with the size of the market, your customer's ability to pay. When can they pay you? Really getting an understanding of that. So when you think about cost and revenue, so what is a revenue stream? People automatically, when I say that, what is a revenue stream? They automatically start talking about price. And I'm not talking about price. I'm talking about a revenue model. And there's several different ways to think about that. It could be like a asset sale where you're selling like a physical product. It could be a usage fee like FedEx, or a subscription like Netflix. It could be renting or licensing, or even like the razor blade model. And so when you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about revenue on the one hand and pricing on the other, pricing has to do with what value are customers willing to pay for. So oftentimes startups, they start thinking about cost plus markup. But this is really the minimum price. It's better to look at value pricing. And this, again, is based on what you learn in customer discovery. So I think Sandra told you guys, I work with a lot of different entrepreneurs in a lot of different settings. And I had an office hour last week with this entrepreneur. And I asked the question, I said, how much is your customer willing to pay for your product? And he spent like 10 minutes talking to me about his costs. I didn't ask him anything about costs. My question was focused specifically on the customer, but he missed that. You have to think about, as you're doing these interviews, remember I said, if a customer has an urgent problem, they're trying to solve it right now. How much is your customer paying to solve the problem now? The entrepreneur I was speaking with last week, he didn't know. And I suggested that as part of his interviewing, he asked that question, because that question helps you understand the relationship between the price and the value that's delivered by your product or service. So you want to think about value pricing. And this is tough because, you know, you're going to have a hypothesis, but the more you get to learn about your customer, the more you learn about how important that problem is to them and how much they're willing to pay for a specific product or a specific feature. That's what you want to think about. Another way you could think about pricing, discounting, value. If you're selling something that has a high value, the price could be based on quantity. You could say, hey, if someone buys a quantity of 1 to 10, it's $1,000. But if they buy quantities of 10 to 100, maybe it's like $850. So that's how you think about fixed pricing. Dynamic pricing, and this maybe people that do coaching and stuff, they may think about it like dynamic pricing because it changes based on negotiations. So you may negotiate the price. And you know, the question is, and people ask, how do you know which type to use? Fixed pricing or dynamic pricing? And this again is based on your customer discovery. You need to do interviews, gather information about how, what your customers are usually doing. And then you also want to look at the market. So in your market for what you're doing, you know, is it pure competition where there are a lot of players? Is it a monopoly where there's one big player and it's just difficult to break in because of that one big player? Is it an oligopoly, which means there's a few big players like Walt Disney, Comcast, Viacom? Like it'd be very difficult to break into that. And then if you think about the competition, you think about your competition in your industry, how will they react based on you? Like, what is their product? What are their cost and prices? What price will hurt them? This is a part of like researching your market. So I want to do one more exercise. This is going to be our last exercise for tonight. And I want you to think about, assume, because I don't know if you guys have this yet, but assume you have desire, problem, solution, fit. Assume your business is feasible. What type of revenue streams and pricing tactics? Think about that for your business. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes and then I'm going to ask for some volunteers. If you know, based on knowing your customers, that's great. But if this is a hypothesis for you, just when we talk about it, just say, hey, this is what I think. And then the homework will be after our class for you when you're doing your interviews to ask, you know, what are they doing now? And you may have some other idea that's not up there. Those are just suggestions. So if you have something else that you've thought about based on talking to your customers, or that you just know in a particular industry, what's done. How are you guys? You need more time, or you got it? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Does anybody want to volunteer and talk about how they're thinking about revenue and pricing? Kwan.
Yeah. Hello, Denise.
Hi.
Yeah. My revenue is yeah, I will get the revenue from the sale per product. The
It's like an
subscription.
asset sale.
Yeah, the subscription from our customer, like, okay, they would like to subscribe for the food for the whole week or several special day in a week. The franchise fee, because we are the franchise, fast food franchise chain, so we get the franchise from other store. And the sale of merchandising and special sauce that we produce. The pricing tactics that we would like to use is the value pricing. And we have a discount for the loyalty, like if you buy 10 meal from us, you get 1 meal free.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Does anybody else want to? Kristen, I see you. You want to go?
Sure. Okay. So for the language learning app, for revenue streams, I said subscription.
Okay.
And then pricing tactics, I'm not quite sure, but if I had to guess, it would be either cost plus or value pricing, but I'm not sure about that yet. I'm just guessing.
Okay.
So that would be something I need to do in the customer's discovery. More.
Right. So remember I said that what most people do, they do cost plus, right? But you want to really think about, like, what are customers paying for this type of solution right now? And what would they willing to be to pay for the value that you are offering? Okay.
Yeah,
and I know you don't know, so I'm just trying to get you to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think with the few people that we have talked to, though, they have like purchased books for language learning, and so that would be like the product sales. But then for people who have done like learning apps, they do subscription or the free version before subscribing to it.
Okay. So Richard, I see your hand, but you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a business idea, but my wife does, and she's planning to teach hula online. So her idea was maybe to maybe charge for like a series of classes, like maybe 10 classes, and charge as opposed to like per class. So yeah.
Okay, and so what about your pricing? How would you do that?
I guess it would be to look at other online hula instructors and see what they charge, and kind of yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Does someone else have their hand raised? Laura?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
For the pricing, it would be value pricing, because it's communication skills and behavioral assessment. So there would be based on the average of what is the going rate now, which is between lowest end $35 an hour to $100 at the high end. And so it would be value-based, because it's going to be this behavioral assessment that provides the awareness to go with the follow-on training to have a combined partnership and with accountability coaching. So if they go for the package, then they'll be able to get a discount as opposed to just going for the assessment or just going for the soft skills training. So it would be packages, and it would be based on the value that these results-oriented values that they're going to achieve from the deliverable of this training and behavioral assessment. And then negotiation for the coaching based on how long they want to have the coaching for, or if they want group coaching or individual coaching. So it would be based on what the individual's company is looking to achieve and their budget for their timeline. And for the revenue, it would be service fee, paying the service for the training and the behavioral assessment product. And then it would be membership. They would have, if they join a membership for ongoing training, group training, or membership of some kind, then they'll be able to get some kind of discount as well for that, as well as the usage fee to utilize the behavioral assessment. So those are some of the ideas that I have.
No, that's good. So what I wanted to get from you guys to get from this is just to start thinking about your business, as a money-making business. And how do you do that? And looking at costs, that's really based on, and I want you guys to think about this for tomorrow, because we're gonna do some exercises around cost. So based on that feasibility sheet, when you look at key activities and key resources, those are going to be the basis for your costs. So that's gonna help you come up with a realistic estimate of cost. Okay. Now what we're gonna do, I hope you guys come tomorrow. I'm excited. Thank you so much for being engaged tonight. Do you guys, well, it's tonight for me. Do you guys have, we covered a lot today. We hammered again on the desire. I talked about feasibility, and we just started talking about whether your business is viable. Do you have, see, I have something for Queen. Yes, I'll give you my email. Do you have any questions about anything that we talked about tonight? If not, you guys will see me tomorrow. But what I want to do tomorrow is, I know some of you did interviews. So I want you to think about this. If you're comfortable, I would love for you to present your findings tomorrow. And what I'm going to ask, if you're willing to do that, is what surprised you most in talking to your potential customers? What insights did you learn that you didn't know before those interviews? So at the beginning of tomorrow, for people that did interviews, just do 1 or 2 slides if you can, and you can use that little I provided like a little template for how to talk about your interviews, and it just will help us all kind of learn. So that's it for me, you guys. I think Pace had a couple of announcements, but again, I wanted to thank you for all of your engagement.